Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheilla, and I have a story for you today. It's called Tigie Plays Missionary. Jerry, he was looking out the window. He had planned and planned for today. It was Sunday, and he was going to get to play outside all day long. But when he got to the dining room, there coming down the windows were raindrops. No, it couldn't rain today. He was going to play outside. Well, he didn't know what to do, and he just kind of sat there. He was upset. Well, then Mother came by, and she said, "Jerry, why don't you study your Sabbath school lesson? This would be a good time to do it." Well, Jerry loved to go to Sabbath school, and he loved his lesson. And every day he would study it and read all the Bible verses so he would be ready on the Sabbath to answer all those questions when the teacher asked. And he thought, well, now's as good a time as any to study. So he sat down with his quarterly and he sat down with his Bible. And he started reading all the Bible texts and reading the story and answering the questions. And just then the doorbell rang. Jerry got up and he ran to the door, and there was his friend Jimmy. Well, Jimmy came in, and Jerry said, "We can't play outside because it's raining." Well, Jimmy saw that Jerry was studying his Sabbath school lesson, and he said, "Hey, I haven't studied mine yet today. Can I study with you? Can we do it together?" Well, that was a good suggestion. So Jerry and Jimmy sat down, and they went through all the Bible texts. They went through the story. They were answering all the questions and asking each other the questions, and they were answering them. And suddenly, Jerry looked up, and the sun was shining. The rain was gone. There weren't any more clouds left. And he said, "Hey, Jimmy, let's go outside. Let's get our coats and go play." Well, that's exactly what they did. And they went outside to play. Jerry, he had a little dog whose name was Tigie. Now, Tigie was very, very special to Jerry, but he was also very, very special to their family, because some time before, one night, when the whole family was in bed, Tigie started to bark. Tigie never barked in the middle of the night. He barked and he barked and he barked and he barked, and he wouldn't stop. Well, Daddy got up to see what was going on. And when he got downstairs, there was Tigie bouncing up and down so hard because he couldn't stop barking. And Daddy looked about, and what Daddy found was awful. The house was on fire. He ran and he got Mommy up, and he got Jerry up, and they rushed outside with Tigie. Tigie had saved their lives. If he hadn't barked, they wouldn't have known that that house was on fire. So Tigie was very special to the whole family, not just to Jerry. Well, the kids, the two boys, went outside to play. They were both about the same age, 10. And they started doing this fun thing and that fun thing. Well, Jerry said, "Hey," this was right before they'd gone out to play. He said, "Hey, I just thought of a game." So he said, "Jimmy, you go in the other room, and I'll stay in here, and we'll play postman with Tigie. So Jerry, he took a piece of paper and he wrote on it, "What is the golden text?" And he put it underneath the collar that was on the neck of Tigie. And then he said, I'm sorry, go to Jimmy. And Tigie just ran as fast as he could, and he got to Jimmy, and Jimmy saw that note, and he pulled it off, and he opened it up, and he said, "What is the golden text? I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one cometh to the Father except by me." Well, he wrote that on the back of that note, and he put it under Tiggy's collar, and Tiggy went running back to Jerry. And Jerry looked at it, and then he wrote, "See you in Sabbath school at 9:45. Well, then Jerry had looked up, and that's when he had seen that the rain had stopped and that they could go out and play, which, as I said, that was what they had done. Well, they had to be kind of quiet because right next to them was a house, and in it lived Mrs. Donahue. She was a little old lady, and she didn't like a lot of noise. So they tried to play quietly, but that's hard for boys to be quiet. Well, they were playing so much and having such a good time, they forgot all about Tigie. Well, Tigie, he ran next door to Mrs. Donahue's house. Now, Mrs. Donahue, she liked pets really well. She had a cat to keep her company, and she had chickens out in the backyard just because she liked them, and sometimes she even got eggs. Well, Tigie had his own way of calling Mrs. Donahue when he wanted her. He was lonely, so he went up the stairs to her porch, and he took both of his paws and he went scratch, 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 scratch on her screen door. And Mrs. Donahue, she knew who that had to be, so she went running to the door, and she opened it, and sure enough, there was Tigie. So she invited him in, and they had a good time playing together, Tigie and Mrs. Donahue. Pretty soon, it was time for the boys to come in. It was the time for dinner time. And so they needed to go back into the house because it was going to be dark before long. Jimmy, he had to go home. And Jerry went in the house with his mother. And they were getting ready to set the table. Mom was making food. Well, then thought about that Tigie wasn't there. But pretty soon, Tiggies came scratching on their door. And they knew that that was Tigie, and they let him in. Well, after dinner, Jerry saw that Tigie had another one of those pieces of paper under his collar. And he thought, I must have forgotten to take the paper off of Tigie the postman. So he pulled it off and he opened it up, and on it was that Bible verse. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to me except by the Father. And he turned it over, and there was the note that he had written saying, see you at Sabbath school at 9:45. Well, then he noticed that underneath of it, there was some kind of faintly written, kind of scratchy writing, and it was kind of shaky. And he read it. And it said, "No one's ever invited me to Sabbath school before. I want to go with you. I want to go the Jesus way. I know it's right. I will see you at Sabbath school at 9:45. Thank you for inviting me." Well, that note hadn't been written originally for her. But that mistake was a great good one, because Mrs. Donahue wanted to come learn more about Jesus. Well, Jerry, he looked down at Tigie, and he said, "Tigie, you were a missionary today," to take that note to Mrs. Donahue. And Mother said, "Yes, Tigie was a good postman today, and he was a wonderful missionary." Boys and girls, if Tigie, just a dog, can be a missionary, you can be a missionary too, by inviting your friends and your neighbors to Sabbath school and to church so they can learn about Jesus too. Thank you, boys and girls, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.